just simply ask yourself the question, can I control anything that I'm actually worrying about? And in the quote that you read, the last part got me when it says, then what is the use of worrying? Mm-hmm. The usefulness of worrying. And I think that question helps you figure that out. I mean, if you're worried about an asteroid hitting the Earth and destroying mankind as we know it, is there anything that you can do about that?
Right.
No. Okay, well then I would suggest at some level accepting that or working towards trying to accept that.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Money Therapy, where I am your host, Brandon Chasteen, and a host,
Bill McGill. And
we're excited to bring to you another episode. We're hoping you're enjoying what you've heard. We hope that there is some sort of positive effect that's happening to the way that you approach your finances, the way you approach financial conversations, maybe amongst your spouse or family, and just the way that you interact in life in general, but also really just with spending and understanding that, hey, we all have these things that we're going through when it comes to money. We're taught things we don't really know that we've learned. We all have our own biases and all these things that can lead us to just anxiousness.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing, what we're trying to do with this podcast, and we talk about this all the time, but we like to bring a topic that we see pretty much on an everyday basis, give you the whole picture and the emotions behind that topic. A lot of times, either what people are thinking, what they're seeing. Today, talking about worrying, how many worries we have on a day-to-day basis. But we also want to give you that advisor perspective too. Helps people realize, if they need to come see a financial professional, what to expect, but also realize that you're not alone. It's something that we hear all the time. It's something that we ourselves deal with. So we're just trying to give you kind of a bigger picture and then some practical tips and ways to think about it, navigate it, and have that conversation.
I love that. Well said. I sit down, we sit down, you sit down. We sit down with people all the time. And I have two main questions that I use to start almost every appointment that I have.
Yeah.
And they don't really have anything to do with money. So if you're a client of mine or if you were to come sit down at my table and have a meeting with me, one of the first things that I'm going to ask you is, in life, the greater, landscape of what you're going through. What is something that you're looking forward to the most?
Right.
And so in hopes that we just start talking about things that we're hopeful for. We can't control everything that we're going through. And not everything that we hope for will come true.
Yeah.
But hope is good. And so what are you looking forward to most? It helps kind of get us centered on, and it's a good meeting point. But here's what I've noticed is this idea of when we talk about hope, generally we're talking about the future. And if I lead you into the future and let you just dangle there in your mind, all of a sudden hope can turn into anxiety, especially if I'm telling you to dream, if I'm telling you to have these big goals and I'm telling you that they're possible.
Yeah.
Well, if you weren't anxious before, now you're going to be, because now you're thinking, well, what if these things do? Now I really want this.
Yeah.
Right. So the next thing I ask is, we all experience life differently.
Yeah.
Is there anything causing you fear or worry or anxiety? Is there anything that you're facing right now that could derail you?
Yeah.
So in this meeting process, I'm taking you into the future and we're talking about hopes and dreams. And while we're there, since we're already in the future in our brains, I want to go ahead and just see if there's anything that any of that negative stuff in the future that's on your heart that we need to talk about. So we spend a little bit of time dwelling in the future.
Yeah.
But then part of my process is intended to not just leave you out there so anxiety just weighs on you the rest of the day.
Right.
But to reel you back into the present. There was I don't know, something I read. I mean, it could have been a simple, I don't know if it was a book or not, but it simply stated that, fear and anxiety exist in the future.
Yeah.
Regret and sadness exist in our past.
Sure.
Neither can be in existence in the right now, right? Neither can be present in the right now.
That'd be tough.
So if you have anxiety, you're dwelling in the future. You need a process to pull you back in to today.
Yeah.
If you're sad and regretful, you're dwelling on something that's already happened, can't change the outcome. So we need to be brought back in the future where we can control our actions.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'll tell you something, when you were talking about your first appointment process and then you just ended up talking about the word that kept coming up in my mind is emotion. It's one of the reasons why we call this money therapy, and why I think that question that you asked first is really a brilliant question, because we talked about this a little bit earlier on another podcast where we were talking about goals. We were talking about goals, and when somebody comes to us and tells us, well, I want to retire by 65. You go, well, why do you want to retire by 65? You end up unraveling this whole different reason. I think you said it right. We kind of borrow those taglines from other people. And a lot of times when we have somebody sit in front of us across the table, and we ask them their goals or their why or what's going on in their lives, they start giving us a lot of those taglines. So I want to put my kid through college, or I want to retire on time, or whatever that is. And that question is really great because it gets to the emotion right away. It reminds me of Simon Sinek, his book, Start With Why. Uh-huh. He goes into great detail about, the two different sides of the brain. One's the logical, one's the emotional. And we tend to go right to the logical, but the emotion kind of drives the car. And so when you ask something to the effect of, what are you worried about? Or what's the first, the way that I do it in my appointment is what keeps you up at night? And you get all kinds of answers, but what they're telling you is, their worries or their anxiousness about whatever it is. And you go right to that emotion instead of, if I tell you, well, I don't know if I'm going to be okay for the future. It's kind of the same question as, am I going to be able to retire one day?
Yeah.
Right. But we dress it up as, I need $3 million to retire and I haven't even started and all this stuff.
Yeah. I got anxious when you just said that.
Yeah. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Maybe you don't. We just met each other, or you're first coming to me for advice today. Let's take our time and what's the base root of this, in this case, worrying. And that's the title of the email.
So I just want to put this quote out there, then I'm just going to throw out a couple questions. But Shantideva stated, if you can solve your problem, then what is the need of worrying?
Right.
And if you can't solve it, then what is the use of worrying? Yeah. And we're kind of grouping this worry and anxiety into the same, because they're kind of the same source of like emotion. But emotion, it's important to point out, like, this has real physical consequence in our bodies and in our relationships, right? So sometimes, like, when I think of emotion, and maybe this is just me being a dude, but like sometimes, like, oh, I'm sad, but I can get over being sad, right? If we don't deal with emotions when they're just the feeling, they can start to, like, actually turn into physical things in our body.
Sure.
They can present real world problems in our relationships. And our body, like, our brain is not the only thing in our body that learns. Maybe that's a bad way to say that, but what I'm trying to say is, like, if my body starts to learn how to function under anxiety, that anxiety can become so entrenched in us that it takes months or years to figure out how to get past being an anxious person, to the point where, many people see, counselors and therapists, and rightfully so, and many people are on medications to help them get through, to help their body unlearn the like being anxious part. And I just, if you're listening to this and you have been in a place where anxiety has like controlled you for a long time. Like, one, we're not counselors or therapists, so this is not meant to replace anything there. I think if you need to seek therapy, and if you're on medications, like, don't be like, oh, well, I listen to money therapy so I can come off my.
I listen to Brandon
my
Bill.
Lexapro.
Sound great. It's like, we hope you feel great, but yeah.
But some of us are like, we go through life and then anxiety becomes a lot for short periods of time.
Right.
And so that's what I want to focus on is, Bill, like, what do we do if all of a sudden today I'm just really anxious about 20 years down the road? Yeah. What if I wake up and just, turned on the news, and inside of that news cycle, I just hear something that's like, man, all of a sudden now, I'm really worried about retirement. I'm really worried about $3 million in a bank account for the last 20 or 30 years of my life. What do I do?
Yeah. So again, that is a question that we get all the time. Not necessarily the $3 million in a bank account question, but when your emotions start taking off on you, a lot of times what I'm trying to do, and Brandon, I know that you're very much the same way, is, like I said earlier, we like to get to the bottom of the emotion, like what's actually causing that emotion, and then kind of reverse engineer the process. And one of the ways that I like to do that is try and slow people down and try and articulate, just simply ask yourself the question, can I control anything that I'm actually worrying about? And in the quote that you read, the last part got me when it says, then what is the use of worrying? Mm-hmm. The usefulness of worrying. And I think that question helps you figure that out. I mean, if you're worried about an asteroid hitting the Earth and destroying mankind as we know it, is there anything that you can do about that?
Right.
No. Okay, well then I would suggest at some level accepting that or working towards trying to accept that. If, for instance, you are worried about retirement and having enough money at retirement, well, we talk about 401ks and IRAs, and that's what we do. If you're worried about your physical health, what's one thing that you could do today about that? Well, you could go on a walk. You could start exercising. You could eat a salad for dinner, right? There's things that your worry does serve a purpose for, but you have to determine maybe what that purpose is and ask yourself, again, can I control this? Can I, in the financial world, I've had people call me and say, Bill, what if the dollar is no longer a thing in 10 years? What if we start using the Chinese yen or the Russian ruble or whatever it is? Can you or I control that today? No. Okay.
So I can't control it. So abandon all hope, right? Like if we
absolutely
could, and there's nothing I can do about it, just abandon all hope.
There's no hope. And yes, you should crawl under. Yeah. No, but let's practically within our realm try and plan. You got to have hope and you got to plan for the future, but you also got to be realistic about it and what you can control.
A few years ago, I had the privilege of working with a wonderful couple that had big goals and an incredible work ethic. They made sacrifices and achieved tremendous success and even got to enjoy an early retirement. But tragically, the wife passed away after just 6 months of that retirement life. This experience shook me to the core and led me to reevaluate how I approach financial planning with my clients. I developed an ideology based on 5 pillars of fitness and happiness, and in no particular order, the pillars of finance, faith, physical and emotional well-being, and mental health. While I'm not a doctor, priest, or psychologist, I believe in the importance of addressing all of these pillars holistically alongside financial fitness. A few months ago, I decided to prioritize my own physical health. I focused on everything from eating well to sleeping better. However, I really struggled to find the right motivation to become a regular at the gym. That's when I reached out to an old friend and fitness professional, Sean Rodman. Sean has been a warfighter in the U.S. Army for 20 years. While serving, he acquired all kinds of fitness certificates and was designated to lead fitness programs for our nation's bravest warriors. Not just the fittest ones heading off to war, but also those injured and needing rehabilitation. When he retired, he started an online fitness company, Parabellum Fitness. He builds workout programs tailored to you, your goals, and even considers your old injuries. He also switches things up from week to week or month to month, so nothing ever gets old. In just a few months, I've experienced better sleep, improved mobility, increased energy, weight loss, and freedom from my old injuries. While I want my clients to achieve incredible financial success, I believe it's all for nothing if you cannot enjoy it. Go check out parabellumfitnessllc.com. That's parabellumfitnessllc.com. Follow them on Instagram or TikTok, really any social media platform. Go follow Parabellum Fitness and reach out to Sean. Set up your first month of programming, mention Money Therapy, and get 25% off. Let's not lose sight of all 5 pillars. Together, let's focus on health and happiness and put energy into creating the best possible life we can. After all, we only get one.
And I think there's power in questions, right? And so when I hear those kinds of questions, like, well, what if this current political climate explodes, or what if this country does this, or what if China, Russia, all these things, what if? And I'm like, well, what if it doesn't? What if those things don't happen?
Yeah.
Warren Buffett was quoted once saying that, basically that he finds it foolish to, at this point in history, to bet against the United States.
Yeah.
There's too much track record of the United States, of Americans coming together when we absolutely need to, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm just never going to bet against America.
Yeah.
And so the question that I hear people's fears, and it's not meant to be like make their fears illegitimate. It's just asking the question. Well, we can either assume you might be right one day. China will control the United States. And okay, let's assume that could be true. So what? Then we just don't prepare for anything? Because what if, my question is what if that's not true?
Or that person who, hey, do you save and invest your money? And they go, no, because, I could be hit by a bus tomorrow. So,
what if you're not hit by a bus
What if you don't get hit by a bus tomorrow because you looked both ways?
Right. And the fact is, you're 40 years old at this point in life. You've been on Earth for 40 years.
Yeah.
And so far, there hasn't been a tomorrow where a bus hit you.
Yeah.
40 times 365. Do that math.
It's a good record of crossing the street.
It's a pretty good record of crossing the street. Let's just let's at least acknowledge that maybe tomorrow you won't be hit by a bus.
Yeah.
I want to jump into a couple things that I want to suggest to everybody listening. If you're an anxious person, or if there's things in your future that you tend to be, losing sleep over, or just, even some of you guys are like listening to this podcast and some things are coming to mind that might even be distracting you from listening. So one thing I've recommended I recommend journaling a lot, and I've recommended things like a wind journal, just general financial emotions journal, different things like that. But this journal, I would title it the What If Journal. So if I'm going through my day and I get to the end of the day and I'm stuck, I have this thought of like, well, what if this happens? What if I can't afford to put my daughter through college? Okay, get out my what if journal, and I'm going to write that down. What if I can't afford to put my daughter through college?
Yeah.
And then under that statement, to your point you mentioned earlier, like, let's get to the bottom of this concern.
Yeah.
Am I really concerned? Am I really losing sleep over the fact that I may not be able to afford college for my daughter? Or is it something more specific, right? Sometimes these fears or anxieties can present themselves in a way that we just easily can, explain to ourselves or to other people.
Yeah.
If you go a little bit deeper, really my fear isn't paying for my daughter's college. It's the fact that if I don't have a plan and I can't afford it, like, where does it come from? Then all of a sudden, my daughter's missing an opportunity to make her life better.
Yeah.
And that's the fear, right? I want my daughter to have opportunity.
Yeah.
So now I've defined the what if. I've gotten laser focused on the actual concern. So now I can build a plan right there. I can just write it down.
Yeah.
Plan A, pay for college. Plan B, student loans. Plan C, help her co-sign for loans or whatever the case may be, but get her to college. Plan D, maybe there's some loans, but also let's start applying for scholarship when she's a junior or senior. Look for state aid or what do I need? But I can have these list of plans. So now in the future, if I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I start feeling that anxiety creep in about, man, what if I just can't pay? Oh, wait, I've already dealt with that. Let me go back to my what if journal. Oh, it wasn't even about paying. It was actually about opportunity for my kid. Are there other ways for me to provide opportunity?
Yeah.
And if not, I've already listed plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D.
Yeah.
And that's something you can bring to someone like us, right? To say, hey, like how incredible of a client would that be that they come into appointment and they're like, hey, this is my what if scenario I'm really nervous about. These are some of the true pieces of my anxiety I need you to know. And then here's my list of thoughts that we could solve. Can we go through this together?
It'd be really weird.
Oh man. Think about the stuff we could get done together.
Yeah. I love that piece about the what if journal. Because it makes me think of, I got one thought and then I want to add something to the what if journal to help
Please.
Maybe the listener. But one thing that I always think of is whenever I'm overwhelmed with a large to-do list, just like I got I have so much to do today. How many times have we been there? And it almost transforms into a feeling of, oh my gosh, I know I'm going to forget something. And then all you're worried about is forgetting something.
Right.
But long story short, just the act of making a to-do list, getting it down on paper helps tremendously. It does me anyway. And then the other thing that I would add for the what if journal to help the listener is if you do this exercise on paper and you put your what if out there, your what if statement, what if I can't send my daughter to college? Ask why questions.
Yes.
And that's going to help you get to, so Brandon, why are you so concerned about getting your daughter to college?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, yeah, again, it goes back to that, like college equals opportunity.
Okay. Why does college equal opportunity?
Because that's what we've been told.
It is part of what we've been told.
Yeah.
Why does what we've, or I'm really killing the why test here, but why do you think your daughter wants to go to college so bad?
I think there's a lot of pressure put on her from society to again, that's what we have commonly as like growing up. Our parents put a lot of pressure on us to make it because when our parents were young, there was a differentiator between pay and an opportunity for those with college degrees versus without.
Yeah.
We've come a long way, right?
So why do you want to help your daughter so badly go to college?
I want her to have that opportunity.
So maybe more, that opportunity, more opportunities.
Right.
Boom. So we've gotten there by just asking 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah.
So maybe incorporate that into your if journal.
And I think that we've talked about that before. I call it the 7 whys.
Yeah.
Ask why 7 times.
Yeah.
And just keep digging. And if you get through 7 and you still don't feel like you quite have nailed it, start over. Start over from where with the progress. Ask 7 more whys.
Yeah.
Because that is spot on. And if you take time to sit in stillness and sit in quietness, one, that's probably already reducing your anxiety. But if you take action, right, that we said that in show prep, like action is the cure for anxiety.
Yeah.
I want to give you guys 3 kind of tips. So what we're alluding to in this what if journal, what we're suggesting that is if you feel anxiety because of a what if scenario in your future, what if my business fails? What if I make it to retirement and I don't have enough? What if, what if I lose the capacity to earn money? What if I lose my spouse? What if, like, all these things that are big deals, right? What if I lose my home? What if I lose my job? If you have these kinds of questions and they're actually weighing on you, right? And they're different for everybody. If you're a teacher, and you do get laid off, chances are there's a job opening. If you're a nurse or a doctor, chances are if you get laid off, there's a job opening.
Probably.
Right? Yeah. But I have an uncle that manufactures. I don't even honestly know quite exactly what he does, but he manufactures, or he's an engineer that developed, like, they work on a piece, I think, to like some sort of rocket thing. And there's only like 3 buyers in the world. And there's only like 3 companies that make this part. So it's literally like, if this thing goes away, he's probably going to have to work really hard to find a new job, right?
Right.
Different levels of anxiety for different people at different points in life. If you have that what if, what we're suggesting is make a plan, and part of that plan should encourage you to take action. But in itself, making a plan is taking action. And I would bet that if you have the what if anxieties and you make a plan, you will start to feel better. There's really 3 things that this can do inside the what if journal, inside of making a plan. 1, it allows me to have a starting point for situations that might actually come to pass.
Sure.
So what some of our what if fears might actually come true.
Yeah.
What if I lose my job? I could.
Yeah.
Right. What if I go through I've been through major career transitions in my life. But the second thing it allows me to do is process and get to the deeper cause, asking the whys, to actually understand what's causing the anxiety.
Right.
The anxiety is not about me losing my job. The anxiety is actually, I just want to be capable of providing for my family.
Yeah.
Like, as long as I have the ability to provide, if I lose the job isn't that,
Sure.
So we can get to the root of it. And then the third thing that I really think that it helps me to do is understanding too, that sometimes my what ifs, well, what if China, owns America and we don't have the dollar anymore? What if an asteroid hits? Well, even still, while some of that might be true and could potentially come to fruition one day, it helps me see that, 1, I have no control over it. And as much as I'm asking myself, what if this does become true? I should also be asking myself, what if it doesn't?
Yeah.
And I think, so those 3 things. So leaving you with 3 more things, 3 keys to a good plan. So if you're in your journal, what if, and you're going to write the plan, we'll kind of wrap up here. Keys to a good plan. Key number 1, the process is never ending.
Yeah.
A good plan has little to do with the plan and everything to do with the planning process. We've talked about it before. Fighter pilots in the U.S. military, they use this thing called the OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, and act. We can adapt that to our own, like, financial planning process, or just life planning, where we just want to observe what's going on. We want to orient ourselves to this specific situation, and then we want to make a decision about what to do, and then do it.
Yeah.
And that should be, and then once we make that decision, okay, observe again. What's changed? Have we improved? Do we improve our situation? Do we make progress? Okay, well, let's reorient ourselves to our new point of progress, make a next decision, and then act.
Yeah.
And it's just on loop. Part of the, so key number 2 is, once we've built this process and built this plan, it's adaptive.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can tell people when they come in for a financial planning situation is, by the time they come back to me again, their life is going to change.
Yeah.
Situations, the environment, everything's going to change. It has to be adaptive.
Sure.
In fact, if I give you a financial plan in ink, it's probably irrelevant by the time you come back in.
Yeah.
So we have to have a lot of conversation, right?
Sure.
The cycle time, so that OODA loop, the cycle time, it can be largely dependent on a few things. 1, how volatile your life is, or what you're going through is.
Yeah.
You might be on loop multiple times a day.
Sure.
and then time, like if I'm thinking, or if my plan is for retirement, right? That for me might be 30 years away. So maybe my UDA cycle there, or whatever cycle I develop, might only be twice a year.
Yeah.
Right. And then the last thing that we need as far as a good plan. So again, 1, the process is unending, constant loop. 2, it's adaptive. And then the 3rd is it is impactful.
Yeah.
My plan is having positive or good effect. How do I do that? And this is critical. Measure success. And in order to effectively measure, we have to have clearly well-stated and defined goals.
Yeah.
Right? So if you can just repeat, make your process on that what if journal, or if you're working with a financial professional and you have a financial plan, ask yourselves, is this an unending process? Is it adaptive? Can it if my life changes tomorrow, is this plan adaptive?
Yeah.
And then 3, is it having effect? Am I measuring? Is there measured results that I can see every week, every month, every quarter, every year, whatever the case may be? And not just like, oh yeah, my net worth went up. That's important. But what if your net worth is going this way and your goals need you to require? You got to make sure it's not just, is it having positive results? Does it have positive results to the goals and objectives I've set?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts, to kind of wrap up here and to plug the email list, but I would say if this seems, even a little bit overwhelming when you're, in your if journal or deciding to make a plan or take action, take time to realize at that point that part of taking action may be calling a professional to get help, right? So if it's financial oriented, calling a financial advisor could be a great thing. If it's, estate oriented, what am I going to do with my house if I pass away? Call an estate attorney, right? Call a CPA if you need help on your taxes. All those practical things. Call professionals to help you develop that plan. And we've said it many times, we're doing our jobs if at the end of the day and the next time that we see each other, I'm giving you more options and I'm putting you in a spot to have more options.
Yeah.
And all of this, again, to plug the email list on your Sunday series email that Brandon puts out, contact us in the show notes. Show notes, we'll put our emails. It's also on harpethwealthpartners.com. But we send out these emails, the Sunday series, with all these thoughts that we're going over. Again, today was about, worry, anxiety, and those reflective thoughts. So, whether you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Music, or YouTube, go check out the website and sign up for the email list.
How much does the email list cost?
Oh, it's free.
It's free.
It's awesome.
It's free, and it's such it's just I've heard tremendous feedback. It's very helpful. It keeps our brains ticking. Last question for you, Bill. Tell me something that worrying helps.
Well, if you read the Sunday series email, you would know that list is blank.
It's nothing.
There's nothing there.
Worry does not help.
Not
right?
usually.
And how do we get over? What's the counter? How do we counter worry? Is taking action, right?
Yep.
Guys, that's it for this episode. We appreciate your time, and we do hope that you're gaining something out of this. Get your what if journal started, and if you are truly kind of stuck in worry right now about something in your future, reach out to us. We'll let you know if we can help you, or we'll find someone that can. If it requires some specific professional. So reach out. We'll talk to you soon, and thank you for your time.
Have a great week.
We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you, and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandon at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.